This is your third collaboration with director Steve McQueen, and it's very unlike, I think, his previous two films. Did you have any expectations going into the film, and did it surprise you at all when you saw the finished product?
I don't know. What do you think is very different? I'm curious.
It's, the previous films were very internal, very, very stylish and in a different way. A lot of these long shots, and this feels maybe a bit more accessible in a conventional, in a traditional way. That
Interesting.
story.
Yeah. I guess I saw the film for the first time in Telluride, and I was just really blown away by it. I think it's a masterwork by Steve, and I think he's what's similar for me for the other films is that, again, as an audience member, he forces you to participate in Solomon's journey. You don't just watch it passively in your seat. You actually become engaged. And again, Steve manages to sort of take the protagonist and in some ways sort of join him with the audience. So everyone, in the audience is living Solomon's experience. They're seeing it through Solomon's eyes. And that's not an easy feat to do. I think, always working with Steve is amazing. So when going in to see the film, I knew it was going to be pretty special. And having worked on set and knowing what the atmosphere was like on set, the energy that he was creating, I knew it was going to be a powerful experience. But I got to say, it was even more powerful than I did expect.
Now, you play the primary antagonist of the film, Epps, who is a cruel slave owner. Given how we view slavery in this day and age, it's so abhorrent to us today. How do you get into this mindset of this character who basically doesn't even feel the need to justify, that he owns human beings and that he treats them the way he does?
Yeah, because that was the norm, to sort of show how something sort of so abnormal would be considered normality. I think with Epps, I wanted to bring him close to the audience as opposed to sort of distancing him from the audience, because that would be too easy for the audience. Oh, well, that guy's terrible and it's got nothing to do with me. I wanted the audience to perhaps catch glimpses of themselves in Epps, even if it was, just for a brief millisecond, that they would see a human being there that they could understand and recognize, as opposed to something that was, let's say, one-dimensional or just purely sort of like cliched sort of evil plantation owner,
Now, slavery has been a tragic part of human history, not just in America, but all over the world. And this is a particularly American story, though. You being an Irish actor, Steve McQueen being a British director, do you think that brings a different perspective to this American experience of Solomon and American slavery?
I don't know. Can't answer that. I come from where I come from. I think it's just a collection of people. It might have happened anyway, and it might have been sort of, American sort of director, American actors. Of course, there are American actors in this piece. But like Steve being British, it's hard to say. I think, could have happened, mightn't have happened. I don't know. It's possible for me to say.
Now, the Edwin and other slave-owning characters in the film, we see them a lot reciting Bible quotes and scripture.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's an important part of the film, and what Steve McQueen is trying to convey is this idea of how the South sort of, and in this era, built itself on trying to justify itself on sort of religion and piety?
Yeah, I think it's factual, I think it's kind of, it's what happened. And we know that that religion down through the ages has been obviously positive effect. I mean, we see that sort of the slaves have religious songs in some ways that raise their spirits and give them hope, because what else are you going to turn to in such dire conditions? And also, it's a way to control people, and obviously Epps is using it for that purpose, using the Bible in some way or other, paralleling it to what he's doing. In a very unintelligent way, I might add. But yeah, we've seen that down through the ages.
Now, the film has been received very well so far in film festivals, and it's getting talk about, maybe awards later on down the line. Do you have any perspective on that? Is that something that you think about or try and block out, this idea of the awards season?
Really, I feel very happy right now. I'm so proud of the film. I'm so proud of Steve and Chiwetel and everyone involved. I think it's a masterwork, and you know, my only hope is that people go see it, and, like, as many people as possible. And I think it's important. This is part of our history, obviously American history, but collective history all over the world. And so, that is my goal. Anything that sort of comes on top of that is great. It's a bonus, but priority, I think, is for me is that people go see it.
Now, Edwin is married to Mary Epps, who in a way sort of drives a lot of his cruelty. Do you think that's part of maybe something that, if not redeems him certainly, but maybe humanizes him in a way that allows us to understand him better or be able to understand his point of view?
I think again we recognize their relationship. We've seen it before in real life. So again, it adds another layer of reality, and these sort of complicated human beings, this really sort of unnatural way of living, this sort of unnatural status quo. Again, it's the normality, but it's so, like, obviously damaging to all involved. So I think, there's lots of humanizing things with the character, his flaws, his love for Patsy. These are all real human traits. And, again, I feel for Sarah's character because, she's basically being, totally embarrassed by her husband's behavior. He's in love with Patsy and he's blatantly sort of acting out in that in front of his wife. And so, originally, Patsy used to be sort of her favorite, in a way. And that sounds so horrible as well. But that she would have in the house all the time, and they would work very closely together before Edwin started sort of, interfering is a light way of putting it. And so, again, there's a complicated relationship that she has with Patsy. And you see it sort of rear its head in the most ugliest form, but there's a root to that. She's threatened by her. And so again, these are very human sort of, conditions.